Welcome to Nobody's Talking Cinema, the show where we talk to the people who make the movies, or in the movies, or just love movies, and sometimes all of the above.
Absolutely.
Today's guest is Robert Cividanes, who I've known for like what? How many? 100 years now? Many years. Rob is pretty much, you run the gamut, right? You do it all. You act, you sing, you play instruments, you're a stand-up comic, you're a writer, cinematographer. I mean, what have I left out?
I have no idea what I want to do when I grow up, so yeah. Got my hand in all those things. Pretty much.
Like everybody in this business. Now, we met very early on, back in the murder mystery days, Conjure Productions. And, you know, long time has gone by since then. A lot of changes in our lives. And I know you're a huge fan of cinema.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah.
As am I, as is everybody. That's why we, created this show, to talk about what we love so much. And what you and I have sort of gravitated towards in our older years, which is making movies. And that's pretty much the topic we wanted to cover in this episode. Rob was the cinematographer on my film, The Mark.
That was me.
That was you. And, I mean, it was a first-time effort for me making a feature film. I think it was the first time that you were in that capacity for a feature film.
I had never shot. Gerry asked me if would you like to be the cinematographer and shoot my full-length movie? And I was just like, you really?
Right.
I will if you want me to, but I never have. He's like, yeah, we'll do this, so we did.
Yeah, and because that's the advice that basically, it's a double-edged sword with that, with the independent film industry, because it's like, on the one hand, people are going, well, you got to just do it. You got to make it. You got to make your film. You got to do content. And on the other hand, you're going to beat yourself up afterwards because you're like, well, I should have hired a professional sound guy. I should have hired a professional cinematographer. And, we're both feeling our way through in a lot of ways. We know that we're able to do these things, but yet when you get down to the nuts and bolts, and you're actually doing it, it mushrooms into something, and you're like, well, I didn't know that, and I didn't plan on that.
Thank God we know each other all these years.
Right. and I hear this story a lot with the film festival. I've heard it a lot, how people, it's easy to get discouraged, or, say, well, I can't do this, but yet, you're on the right track. Mm-hmm. And when you look at, you've been on movie sets, we'll say real movie sets. And I find that when I'm on those sets, I get it, as much as I get frustrated, I also look at it and go, well, we did that. We just didn't do it as well. Because we
hit a lot of notes making The Mark. Definitely.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about, we'll talk about your film that you were doing, but also, the industry itself. Like I always tell the story about, the Brothers McMullen, which I think is the one that Long Island became like famous for. Mm-hmm. And I was curious your thoughts on that film and what it took to get that film made and done, and why it became so successful as opposed to today trying to break into the business.
Well, I love the story of how Ed Burns, he had equipment from Entertainment Tonight. Is that what it was? And he would just, weekends, whatever hours they could get the equipment, he would have the equipment to shoot the movie that he wanted to make. Mm-hmm. He had the actors he wanted. I love the story behind how it was made. Now, the movie's made okay. You know what I mean? You look at it, like I'm sure, like you said, when he was finished making it, he looked at it and went, I could have done this, I could have done that.
Right.
But it was also about people. It was about relationships. Nobody was blowing up the world. Nobody was stabbing anybody in the eye with a chainsaw. Mm-hmm. And
then she wants to see your passionate side.
And remember, I'm Catholic. I shouldn't be doing this in the first place.
Then she wants to see your soft, caring, feminine side.
Friendship.
Yeah.
Not love.
No. And she keeps peeling and peeling until you're left there, buck naked, blowing in the wind.
Hey, I don't need any new ideas, all right? I'm confused enough already.
The Brothers McMullen.
I mean, it got good reviews. And it made a lot of money because it cost like nothing,
right?
To make. So I love the story behind it. It was kind of like created a watermark for indie films in a way. That
Mm-hmm.
movie, making it the way it did.
Right. Now that film was made, like now everything we're doing is digital. That was made on film And I look at that and I say, I mean, I know how difficult it was editing The Mark, and you probably, but it's simple compared to cutting film.
You cut a film, it's cut.
I mean,
it's cut.
I can't imagine what he went through, because he did all. Now the flip side of that is, and I've heard that movie, which went on after being made, I think it was for $25,000 or $30,000 back then, went on to gross somewhere in the neighborhood of millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
But that after it won the film festival, the studio that decided to pick it up and distribute it invested another couple of $100,000 into it and reshot some of the scenes, which is actually what was released in the theater.
Right.
Does that happen today?
It can, you know. Again, it depends on what level you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people to make films today. If people like Martin Scorsese and Spike Lee and Ron Howard have trouble getting the money together to make a movie, yeah, it's a lot of money to make a movie.
Right.
But that says something. You know what I mean? So I think, yeah, a lot of things do get reworked or reshot. If a studio has money and they're putting money behind a project, and whoever the producers are and whoever the decision makers are, they want things changed. Who knows what the last two Star Wars movies look like? The first edit. Nobody, we're never going to know.
Right.
Because things get switched around, they get changed, they get tested in front of audiences. I was watching the other night on TV, Fatal Attraction. That movie originally had an ending where she kills herself, Glenn Close. Mm-hmm. And there's a trial. He goes on trial for killing her, because there's a scene in the movie where he's at her apartment and he puts the knife down, and she looks and smiles because he's got his prints on the knife.
Right.
They tested it, audiences hated it. They hated it. So they made it a horror movie ending. With her coming up out of the bathtub and stabbing her with a knife and all that stuff. So
right.
Things get reworked still like that today, of course.
But do you? I sometimes I get frustrated watching movies now, because it seems like what you're saying is true. It seems like today, from right out of the gate, it's often in mainstream films more so. I think as I've gotten older now, I used to watch the Academy Awards or things like that when I was younger and be like, what are these films that I've never seen? Now I gravitate more to those where, as much as I enjoy the superhero movies and things like that, I want to see these movies that maybe were made more with the story in mind, where it wasn't bastardized for marketing.
I saw a Good Will Hunting 3 times in the movies to take people to see it. Right. Because I'd seen it, and again, it was at that time everything was blowing the world up, or you know, ultra violent movies, which are okay. And I went to see this movie. I said, you got to, especially my actor friends, I said, you got to go see this film where these people just act.
Maybe you're perfect right now. Maybe you don't want to ruin that. But I think that's a super philosophy, Will. That way you can go through your entire life without ever having to really know anybody. My wife used to fart when she was nervous. She had all sorts of wonderful little idiosyncrasies. You know, she used to fart in her sleep. I'm sorry I shared that with you. One night it was so loud it woke the dog up. She woke up and got like, oh, was that you? I said, yeah, I didn't have the heart to tell her. Oh, God. She woke herself up? Yes. Oh, Christ. But Will, she's been dead 2 years, and that's the shit I remember. It's wonderful stuff, you know? Little things like that. Yeah, but those are the things I miss the most.
Now, you probably hear this a lot, too, as an artist trying to break into this industry. Every time you go to make a movie, somebody throws out the Blair Witch. It's going to be the next Blair Witch. How frustrating is that? It's almost like I wish that movie never came out, because the expectation is, you know, you make a film like this, like The Mark, and it's like, is it going to be in the theaters? And you don't want to, like it seems like the average person is just so far removed to really what it takes to get a film like ours.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's so many things that happen that people don't know about. How long would you say was the editing process on The Mark?
It took me months. I'm still wanting to go back and change things. So it's an endless thing, but there was a good 8 months.
That's just one part of making a movie.
Right.
And that's just one part of putting something together that maybe somebody will have some interest in, maybe at some point somewhere, that may know somebody else that's got money they want to put behind it, who may want to say, you know what, let's reshoot this, or let's put it on DVD. There's so many different things that can happen.
And again, you know, just for the viewers out there, 8 months, that's hours and hours per day. But also there's a learning curve and a learning process in there, so it's almost like you're sending yourself to film school, you're sending yourself to editing school. I always said, you know, if I hired an editor and said, how do I do this, he would probably do in 20 minutes what took me 2 hours. So that's also part of the problem of not having a budget. But then I look at a guy like Ricky Gervais, who after he gave his speech at the Golden Globes went home, and I follow him on like Twitter, and he's editing his show Afterlife by himself.
Louis C.K. wrote, directed, he had his laptop, he sat and edited that show on. That's how he did all that.
I hear James Cameron did the same thing with, he was the main editor and actually did, I don't know if it was Avatar or one of his major films, he wrote, directed, and did, they say, 90% of the editing, and he actually did.
Guys that have been around for a while, David Lynch, you see his name, sound design, editing, there'll be 5 editors. That's another thing people don't realize, what goes into taking the pictures to make a movie, what goes into having sound be the right way while you're shooting it, and then all the things you have to do after you're done shooting it to make the sound be right, and then color correction, and then people, you know, people are like, oh, you're going to go do your little thing, you're going to go make a movie, you're going to put, it's nice, you're going to do your little project, you're going to do your skit.
Except when you make it, then they'll all be like, hey, Ron,
I
you
know.
made that movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But now take a guy like Scorsese, okay, and again, the editing process as opposed to the filmmaking process. Are you able to make a film, and would you be able to hand it to an editor and say, here's the footage, just go do what you got to do?
In best case scenario, as you're shooting, you have an editor that has everybody on it. But it's another thing people don't realize. Everybody that works on a film is a storyteller, whether they're a costume, set design, lighting. You have an editor, best case scenario, who's hired, and as you're shooting the film, you're giving him the
he should film. Be there on.
Well, even if he's not there, you've had enough conversations. It's a lot of conversations. It could be somebody on the West Coast doing this for me, and you talk about it, you talk specifics. Then they're editing it as you're still shooting the movie, and in intervals you have more conversations. No, I didn't. That's not the feeling I want. And editors that have been doing this, that are good at it, they're also going to come up with things. You're going to be like, I didn't even know there was a laugh in that scene, and they showed me where there was. Or I didn't even know that this angle of looking at this character was going to give it a whole different tone to the whole scene. So that's the best case. If I'm all done with it, I guess it would be a different feeling. If you spent all the time filming it and you go, I never want to have a first-time editor editing my first film if I wanted to do something. If I'm looking to put the film out there to do something, only because, like you said, us learning on our own projects, that makes sense. Paying somebody... Someone's
got to have experience on this
project.
Yes,
you got to have somebody steering the ship, you know.
Now, independent films, by definition, that's also something that's changed. I mean, how would you define an independent film today?
An independent film gets put together and created without necessarily having a studio backing it at all. And then it's these film festivals, I think, have probably morphed also over the years, where that's where people bring their film, and people who have money or people who are in the audience with a phone that work for people who have money say, oh, you know what? I'm interested in putting this in the theater. I'm interested in, I don't care if I take a loss on this. Well, this I think I can get behind because I believe in the project. There's all different reasons for, but I think it's making a project without the backing of a studio, and then having that picked up. It's still independently made.
Because there's a lot of films that have been made as independent films that have millions of dollars in their production costs.
Absolutely.
But they're just not with a major studio, which I think is another misconception out there with the public. They think you're making an independent film. It's more like what Ed Burns did. Last night I watched a movie called A Ghost Story on Netflix. And I was watching this movie, and it's very slow, drawn out, very deliberate. The scenes are very drawn out. It was only a $100,000 film, but then I looked at it, and it's got Casey Affleck in it.
Okay.
And it was at Sundance. And how much do you think Like when you look at something like that, and by no means was the movie great. The movie wasn't terrible either, but I couldn't help but look at it and went, if you and I made that movie of the same quality, it had a much more difficult task of getting in. How difficult is it, like, breaking through that? How I guess how realistic is it to expect to penetrate the Hollywood bubble?
It's, like you said, really, I think what's important is keeping your head down and being serious about the work and creating the project and seeing who you can talk to. Just keep talking to people about what you're doing.
Right.
Because, like you said, Casey Affleck's in that movie. Movies don't get to move forward sometimes without, even before it gets to the studio point. Good Will Hunting wasn't greenlighted until they got Robin Williams.
Now you're working on a film, okay? Stages?
I'm working on a project called Stages. It's really, I'm making it for as an episodic that's going to be shown on the internet. You know,
Okay.
And it's me. It's me shooting it. I wrote it. I cast people through a friend of ours, gave me some actors' names, and it wound up working out really well. And it's taking a long time because I wrote a lot of characters for this project, and everybody's got different schedules. So to get people together for the scenes is a task in itself. Again, people don't realize this kind of stuff goes into making a film. But I'm learning a lot slowly because I get to sit with all this footage I have and edit.
Right.
See what it sounds like. See the power of the two-shot versus an over-the-shoulder, over a medium, where it belongs, and how that dance happens with pictures. Working with the sound. You were just asking me about a clip we were watching. How do they deal with the sound there? You find ways to cheat when you got no money.
Right.
You know, there's ways to do things.
Well, let's take a look at it. Let's pop it up here.
Oh, this is a scene from Stages. Real quick, my character in this episode is someone who's in recovery from drugs and alcohol. He felt like he was going to go out and drink because he just found out somebody he knew died, and I'm sitting with my sponsor in the story, telling him how I felt like I wanted to drink, but I didn't, and now we're talking that out, and that's what this is.
Okay.
That was longer than the clip as he explained.
Stages, written and directed by Rob Cividanes.
It was like I could already see myself out there, like really doing it, getting fucked up and throwing everything away again. And I couldn't stop the thought. It was really clear in my head. Just drink, man. You know?
Well, it's very alcoholic of you.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I know you knew. So stop all the living inside your own head shit and help somebody else, huh? You know how this works. Do the next right thing. Somebody I know dies. It sucks. I'm still here, and you're still here. Make it count. I'm going over to the meeting at the pit. You're going too.
Yes, Obi-Wan.
Stop with the fucking Star Trek shit.
It looks really good.
Thanks.
Yeah, serious stuff.
It's got serious things in it. It's got funny things in it. Tom Ciaciore, I think is how you say it. I'm sorry, Tom, if I'm butchering your last name. Really good actor. We had a really fun time shooting that scene, and it was great to work with somebody who it was just him and I and a camera.
Now you said it's episodic, so you're like breaking it down to what lengths and.
I have 3 episodes fully written. They're like 20, 25 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I have 1 episode almost fully shot and edited. Of course, it's episode 3. You do.
Now you're going to be playing a role in my film, which begins filming this Saturday. Essence. You'll be playing a doctor in that.
I will.
And before we wrap, because a lot of this was very serious about filmmaking and stages and all, but being a stand-up comic, I'm always curious what people's favorite films are, and we have to talk about some funny films. Because what would you say if you had a list? I mean, you've probably done this in your head. What your top 5 comedies are?
So hard. It's so hard. When I saw A Fish Called Wanda in the movies, things like that don't happen very often. The World of Monty Python met like American film, comedy-wise, and it was explosive for me.
Hello, honey. What happened?
Nothing.
What's that? Not Granny.
Not yet.
Oh,
No.
Who's it for then? A fish. Frenchman. A phone operator.
Friend.
Oh, a four-legged one? Oh. Where's my sister?
She's in the
Thank you.
lavatory.
I think the first time I ever experienced anything like that was when I saw the movie It's a Mad, 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 Mad World when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I was like, all these people, because I was a big TV kid and film kid at a very, very young age. So I knew, like, everybody in that movie. And some of them I had never seen them in color before. But the comedy just coming at you like that. Right. I like physical comedy, I like brainy comedy, silly, serious, and it was all in that movie. That's one of my favorites. It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Many young people like that have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. Go watch it. It's a really funny movie. Most of the frat boy movies I could still sit and watch. I could still watch Around My House. I could still watch Caddyshack. There are classic performances in those movies. There are a lot of old-time Arsenic and Old Lace is never going to be an old comedy for me. It just makes people laugh. So there's a lot of them I could just go on for another 20 minutes.
Right.
Stages. It's this thing that's going to be an episode. It's really funny.
It's really funny.
It's really good.
You can tell from the scene we saw. Comedy gold.
Yes.
I want to thank you for appearing on the show. It was always a pleasure. And we'll see you again on the next episode of Nobodies Talking Cinema.
Got a baby who can give me 31 flavors. And we like tutti frutti day. I call him Ice Cream Joe. He is the most boy I know.
Go, baby, go!
He gives me 31 flavors. And we like tutti frutti day. I just love him so. He's my baby, Ice Cream Joe. Every time I kiss him, I feel mighty fine. I love 31 flavors. Bananas and orange, jam on the tin, I'm telling you, better than we kiss. Give me 91 flavors.